Have you ever imagined how it would feel to meet an angel? How would that meeting be? Today we have a poem by Meena Kandasamy where she relates how it would be if she were to meet an angel. The poem title is An Angel Meeting Me. And maybe we will almost fall in love. Here the poet says that she's going to meet an angel and they would almost fall in love. I will look into his eyes and he into mine. My one single eye. So here we see that the poet says, the angel will look into my single eye. The character has only one eye. The unfortunate other blinded by a disciplinizing slap. So she says that the other eye has been destroyed by somebody who has slapped her. Since she describes this slap as disciplinizing slap, it means that a figure of authority has punished this little girl. And we will agree, adjust that love can be blind. But here she says, in spite of that, that angel is going to accept her the way she is. The angel is going to accept her with one eye and they would adjust. And they would both agree that love is blind. And he, healthy boy, well fed, white with his rosy cheeks. So now she describes the angel. He is a healthy boy. He is very fair. He is well fed. He has rosy cheeks. He will wonder about me. He is going to look at this girl and he is going to wonder, pity my bony body, those thin ribs. She says that the angel will pity her bony body. From this we can infer that this little girl is very thin. She is quite starved. Her ribs are sticking out. And worry, that little boy, that angel is going to worry. And he would feel my twisted ears. He is going to feel her twisted ears and the scars on her hands. So now we know that she's bony and thin. Her ribs are sticking out. There are scars on her hands. Reminders of the flirtation of my skin and a cruel cane. She says that these scars are the reminders of her flirtation with a cane. So again we see that a figure of authority has been hitting this child, has been twisting her ears and beating her with a cane, and perhaps lift my skirt. The angel would then lift her skirt before he learns the greatest horrors. I owe him the truth of me. Now she says lastly that this angel, perhaps he would lift her skirt and there he would see the worst kind of horror, the worst kind of abuse. And there she says, I will have to tell him to own up to the truth of me. Let us see, what is this truth? Does she have a past that is full of abuse? Has she been beaten, raped? What has happened? She says, so I will say to him, I went to school. So this is the confession that our poet has to say to the angel. She is simply going to say that she went to school. And it is for going to school that she has been punished in such a horrific manner. Meena Kandasamy is a writer, an activist, an actress. She has researched long in the Dalit literature. She is a Dalit by birth. The very word Dalit comes from Dalita in Sanskrit, which means broken. The Dalits are a broken people, a people who have long since suffered untouchability. They have been called untouchables. They have been called the lowest rung of the caste system in a great country. In fact, untouchability is something which a great country like India must forever hang her head in shame for what it has done to these daughters and sons. They have been called untouchables. They have been pariahs. They have been outcasts from society for a very long time. So here Meena Kandasamy, her poetry reflects rebellion and resilience. As a Dalit, she represents their voice, and that is why she is telling us that the Dalits were not allowed education for a very long period. Another pioneer feminist, Uma Chakrabarti, has said that Dalit women have been controlled in various fields. One is education, another is water resources. The Dalit women were not allowed near any of the water resources. The water that was allowed to them was also taken up by the upper caste people. And these people were actually forced to live in unhygienic conditions. They were dirty because simply because they did not have water to drink, to bathe, and then the very upper caste people named them as dirty by first of all not allowing them access to water. They were landless, they could not own land. The Dalit women actually faced so much suffering that is incomprehensible even to the Dalit man or to the upper caste woman. So, actually, in India, feminism came up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but even so, feminism could not take into its fold this one section of society called the Dalit women. The Dalit women came into the forefront of feminism only in 1995, and even to this day, they suffer. Even as recent as 2021, an upper caste Brahmin father poisoned his own daughter for eloping with a Dalit boy, and the boy was beaten up. In 2019, we have a case where a Dalit boy was beaten up and killed, his eyes gouged out, thrown into a gutter, simply because he had the audacity to love an upper caste female, upper caste woman. So, in all her poetry, Meena Kandasamy brings this reality into focus of how heavily the Dalits have faced these atrocities. In one of her poems called Narration, she shows us that how the landlords saw the Dalit women as their own property, that they may do as they wished. These Dalit women were sexualized, they were objects of sexual desire, they were not allowed to cover their upper body, and they had to work in the fields under the gaze of a patriarchal, parochial, upper caste, Brahminical system. The men were gazing at them and objectifying them, and they did not have the power to resist. In a way, the Dalit women's sexuality as well as the upper caste women's sexuality was all controlled by this male patriarchy, because when a Dalit man should elope or fall in love with a higher caste woman, it was considered that the purity of her caste would go. It would become impure, and if she had children of a Dalit man, then her caste would be polluted. So it was essential that an upper caste woman's sexuality had to be guarded. She had to be preserved. She had to be protected and kept inside. She was the gateway to which the caste could be polluted. Whereas a Dalit woman was considered as any man, any upper caste man had a free reign on her body, and whether she had children in him. Quite often they were forced to abort their children, or else these very children were once again misused by the upper class gentry. In another of her poems called Shame, Meena Kandasamy relates how a 16-year-old child was violently raped and abused, and this girl jumps into a fire. She actually sets herself on fire in order to escape such a horrific existence. And here the poet compares her to the mythical, to the epic Sita, the divine Sita, who, in order to show how pure she was, had jumped into the fire. But in the epic, Sita Devi is not consumed by the fire. But here the poet compares them and says that the poor Dalit girl has nobody to save her. There is no justice coming to save her, and she must be simply consumed by the fire. Yet another of her poems, called Facing the Music, she says that a young woman stands. She is standing there like a statue because her man, her lover, has been lynched. He is lynched, but she pretends that he is still alive. In order to console herself, she must live alone. This is a result of an intercaste marriage. And Meena Kandasamy says, too meek to murder, too weak to commit suicide. So, why is the person so meek to commit suicide? We have always seen that in all literature, suicide, committing suicide, is definitely portrayed as an act of cowardice. But here, Meena Kandasamy points out that it is an act of bravery for these Dalit women who face such horrible atrocities. In fact, to let go of this body, to let their spirit free, even suicide is considered an act of bravery. And this woman, which it is not very clear whether she is the upper caste woman whose husband has been lynched, or she could be the Dalit woman whose husband has been lynched. This woman stands mute. She must face the music forever because she is too meek to go after her oppressor and try to murder them, and at the same time, she is too weak to commit suicide, but she must live on. In this poem, we see that she shows the binary opposite of the angel. Why is the angel a well-fed, rosy-cheeked, fair boy? We can see here that Meena Kandasamy is showing us that the young girl in the poem visualizes an angel as totally opposite to her. She cannot identify with an angel because she lives such a life of degradation, a life where there are no rights, no right to education, no right to proper work or land. So she visualizes an angel who is her binary opposite. He is male while she is female. He is fair, rosy cheeked, well fed. He is healthy and he is very kind to her. He is looking at her body, and we see that the worst atrocity can be seen when her skirt is lifted. So, a Dalit girl is subjected to sexual abuse just because she wanted an education. Actually, in 1950, the Untouchability Act had come into being. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi had all fought for the Dalit people so that they would be given their rightful place within society. And in 1950, a concrete law was passed that these people should not be segregated. They should not be having only those jobs that the rest of the society did not wish to take. But even in 1989, yet again, the government had to pass an act called the Act Against Atrocities to the Dalit people. Because even in 1989, the atrocities continued. People still continued to treat them differently. There have been cases quite recently where Dalit children who played near a well were electrocuted and killed because they were supposed to have polluted the water that belonged to the upper caste people, the supposed upper class people. Meena Kandasamy has been quite often, she has had to face criticism and even threats for portraying the conditions of the Dalit people, for her act of rebellion. But here she always says that these criticism by the so-called fanatical, supposedly upper caste people will not frighten me, and it should not frighten anybody who is in the creative process. And she exhorts people to write about their experiences. So this is a poem where the Dalit experience is very well portrayed. Thank you. An angel meeting me. by Meena Kandasamy. And maybe we will almost fall in love. I will look into his eyes and he into mine. My one single eye, the unfortunate other, blinded by a disciplinizing slap. And we will agree, adjust, that love can be blind. And he, healthy boy, well fed, white with his rosy cheeks, will wonder about me. Pity my bony body, those thin ribs, and worry, and feel my twisted ears and the scars on my hands, reminders of the flirtation of my skin and a cruel cane, and perhaps lift my skirt before he learns the greater horrors. I owe him the truth of me, so I will say to him, I went to school,